Come with me. Let's go on this mental journey. Now, imagine if your head reacted to your brain. You know what I mean? Like if someone was sad, you'd see one's head glow blue. Or if someone was angry, then one's head would glow red, bright, raging red, almost like a tomato. Or what if someone felt inspired? Then one's head would glow bright, almost shining. Now, what if someone was unmotivated? Maybe one's head would be dim, lacking that light, that liveliness. How do you think the world would change? Would we be more considerate? Will we take matters of the mental more seriously? Or will we just be desensitized to it all?
So the first time I realized that there was something wrong with me was in high school, and I wasn't sure what it was. Like I wasn't sure what I was dealing with, but I knew I was feeling things that were out of the normal. And I didn't really tell anyone. I kind of dealt with it by myself because I wasn't comfortable sharing, and I didn't want to be judged by other people. So I just kept it to myself, and I was in my room a lot. And yeah, just dealing with things by myself, writing, documenting what I was feeling. And I didn't tell my parents or my family because I felt like they wouldn't understand what I was saying. And I also felt like I knew what they would tell me to do or how to handle it, which is like basically tell me to pray about it or something. And I would say that in high school I was a more prayerful person than I am now, and that definitely at that point didn't help me. So I just kind of decided to deal with it by myself. And then I came to college, and I think I started to understand what I was dealing with more. Like I started to understand that it was like a mental illness, and that I was depressed. And so I just basically began to understand it more. And so that led me to tell my sister. She was the first person that I told. And I was more comfortable telling her because we're very much alike, and we have an understanding. And so telling her was not as difficult as it was in high school, where I wasn't as close to her at that point.
So I think I first started realizing that I wasn't totally in control of my mental health, or like something was a bit off during high school. I started like noticing and acknowledging like changes in mood. I started acknowledging like differences in my happiness compared to my peers. It was especially prevalent in moments where I would be in spaces where, like, say there were people that were like really happy, and I was kind of opposed to that. Like I was in this state of like isolation or like self-isolation, being irritated by their happiness and whatnot. And those type of things started like ringing in my head. Of course, I wasn't aware that like there can be an issue with my mental health, but like I was just aware of these things happening. And like those dichotomies between like people who seemed like they were in control of the happiness, as opposed to me, where like it felt as if I wasn't totally in control. Like, it was variable depending on like how I woke up or like what someone does to me. And you know, I started noticing more and more of it, like the mental health aspect of it. When I kind of arrived on Lawrence, I faced a lot of social circumstances and situations that really challenged me mentally and just and also different dimensions of my life. And I started noticing myself kind of slipping out of like who I know myself to be, whether that may be you know, the Brandon who's always there for people, or the Brandon who like can stay, you know, is capable of staying up to do their assignments, or like just being interested in the things that I'm interested in, whether that be like, you know, pastimes or hobbies and stuff like that. I was slowly slipping away from that.
Where do I start, right? I start with my issue. My issue is I have, it's gonna sound a little childish, but the consequences and the effects of it are very drastic. So I have performance anxiety, and because of that, and because I have IBS, which is called irritable bowel syndrome, both of them paired together, I have physiological reactions to whether it's I'm giving a presentation or I'm talking in front of a group of people, or anything having to do with high risk, and just me being able to showcase something in front of a large group of people, or just people in general. I've always had it, and it started mostly when I was competing in karate. Right before I would compete, like do my form, or whenever I was about to have a fight, like I'd get so like anxious about what could happen, about me not losing, me not being able to make my family proud in terms of like, yo, we spent this much money on you being able to do this and do it well. So we are expecting something from you, and because of that, like there would be times I was just like, yo, time out, like I have to go take a shit, like I have to go use the bathroom because I need to just let it all out. So it was always there. It was always something that I was worried about, and it's caused like down the line, I'm thinking about like more towards high school, a lot of like health problems, and knowing the history with my dad and my granddad with these issues, like I knew it was bound to happen. When they would tell me their stories about it.
I don't think I was ever depressed. It was more anxiety it was more depression that it went into the anxiety, and I started to get freaking panic attacks. My first panic attack was when I was in the 4th grade. I was on my way to school and I had a panic attack on the bus stop, and I didn't know what it was, and my parents didn't know what it was, so I just ran home. I just went back home. I was like, F this, I'm not going to school today. My parents were like, oh, you're just sick, you have a cold. So then I didn't get another one until like a few years later, until 4 years later, 8 years later? 8 years later. So from 4th grade, I didn't get another one until 10th grade. And then 10th grade, I was actually home and I was just doing homework, and then in the middle of doing homework, I just started panicking. I couldn't breathe. It was weird. My mom, she took me to CVS. She took me to the first like physician there was around. And then after CVS, it was like, we don't know what to do. We don't know what's happening to her. She just can't breathe. So then they called 911 and I went to the ambulance. And then when I got to the hospital, they was like, oh, it's just a panic attack. You'll be fine. And I'm like, oh, okay. I thought I was dying. And then ever since then, they started to happen more frequently from that point on. And then it was terrible because my parents didn't know how to deal with it.
So my parents, like, they knew that I had issues, but we never really like talked about it. So fast tracking to college, I remember I was in this one class where I had to do a presentation, and I was a freshman, and because I had come in with college credits, I was allowed to take sophomore and upper class like courses. So I was in this class and I was required to do presentation, and that same day I had an exam. So you have me, this little tiny freshman, in front of all these like juniors and seniors trying to give me presentation on shit I don't know about, like anything. And then like I shut down, like I left, like it was bad. And then like the teacher was just like, Woodland, like you don't look too good, like what's going on? And I just told her straight up, like I'm scared, like I don't want to have to do this at all. And she was like, well, maybe you should go talk to someone about it. And it wasn't until then that I realized, like, yo, like you can't just put this on the back burner anymore. Like it's actually affecting your academic. Like you're here for a reason. You're here to get your degree. Like if you can't do a presentation in front of your classmates, like imagine when you have to do it when it's coming to work or just anything in general. So what happened was I went to counseling services and I spoke to this woman who was an intern at the time. Like she's not even here no more. She left me behind. She was like, yo, you may have a little bit of anxiety, like, and I get it.
I personally find it easier to tell like really close friends than like my own family. During fall term, I was going through like a really heavy academic situation, and when I was telling my mom about it to kind of update her and like be like, Mom, this is going on right now. Of course, she asked like, why is this happening? And I didn't feel like lying to her. I didn't feel like holding the truth from her. And I told her everything that was going on. And I told her that what the counselor told me. I told her that like I suspect it may be true, that I may be like living with depression. I may be living with anxiety or anything, and that's impacting my academic performance. And like I've only told, within my family, I've only told my immediate family. I mostly withheld it from my little sister. I kind of give her hints and whatnot, like telling her like, yeah, like I'm not doing too well, but I've never like straight up told her like I'm going through depression. My father and my mother though, I definitely have had conversations about it with them. And it wasn't taken well, to be honest. I guess we'll start with my father because that's still like the least extreme example, but with my father, I told him what I was going through and he told me to brush it off. And he was like, oh, you can't be like sad all the time. You need to like find things that you like doing and just try your best to be happy because this is just a feeling. Everyone goes through it, everyone has their dips and mood and whatnot, and you just need to kind of like push through it and then like there's light at the end of the tunnel, like that type of story. So I really felt as if like he wasn't getting it. Like he wasn't getting that this isn't like a mood, this isn't like something I'm just waking up with, but like this is something I'm consistently living with.
Everyone needs something to cling to in their moment of need. It could be a family member, an activity, maybe even a god, or a religion. After all, we're only human, and sometimes these things seem like they could be enough. It isn't.
My parents are really religious because they come straight off the boat, hella immigrants, accents thick as hell. So when they started happening more frequently, I didn't tell them. I went straight to my guidance counselor in my school and was like, I have a problem with anxiety. And then instead of it being just a problem between me and her, she got my mom involved. And then when she got my mom involved, my mother, again, she didn't understand. So it was kind of okay, this is a problem of the devil is trying to get you. That happened, I was just like, all right, so let me talk to my mother about it, let me talk to my father about it. And they're the type of people, like, they're very religious. So for them, it's just like, oh, me prier sur lui, like, everything is just like, oh, just pray about it. And don't get me wrong, like, I believe in God, I believe he's real, I believe he has my back, and I practice my faith as much as I can. But there are certain things that like I pray on a daily basis, like I talk to God, I talk to him and all these things, but there are just some things that I need more comfort in, like from my parents and from my family, than just saying like, oh, just pray about it, because that's something that I can do. Like I need something that you can do to help me like get through this, whether it's like we go to the doctor and figure some shit out, or we just like talk about it just at all. So
discussing my mental health with my mother was tedious. It was very difficult, and it proved to be like almost a dividing factor between my relationship with her. And it was almost divisive for us because she simply was not she was not understanding, or she did not try to understand for a while what I was going through. And whenever I would talk to her about it, she would take it the wrong way. Got to a point where she said, it's just a spirit you're living with, you need to pray it away. It's not a spirit I'm living with. Like, this is something, like, this is a chemical imbalance. Like, this is something that, like, I'm waking up and it's preventing me from, like, doing what I need to do. And I felt as if, like, all this, like, spiritual talk was super annoying. And, like, the fact that I was trying to explain alternatives to her, like, the scientific reason why some people, like, experience this, she just wasn't, like, getting it, or she wasn't trying to understand it. And it was really annoying for us. And it got to the point where we got in arguments about it. And I just couldn't find any other solution as to, like, how I can change her mind about what depression is or what anxiety is.
I do feel that Black communities don't put enough emphasis on mental health. To them, everything else comes before themselves. Your grades come before your kid. Your kid's grades matter more than how they're feeling.
And I also deal with anxiety. And that is what I have told my parents about at this point. I still haven't told them about my depression, because I just feel like for many African parents, that's like a more intense thing to say. And it's kind of harder for them to understand. With anxiety, I'm not the only person in my family who deals with anxiety, and so it was easier to tell my mom, because that's something that she struggles with as well. And she was very understanding when I told her, and we talked about dealing with it together, because it's something she struggles with as well. She went to get help for her anxiety and basically shared with me what she was doing, and I would tell her what I was doing, and it was easy in that regard. And why I still haven't told them about my depression, as I said before, is because I feel like that's a more intense thing, and I don't know if it's something that they will understand. It's easier to share your experiences with people when you think that they will understand. And with anxiety, I felt that they will understand that. But with depression, I don't think that they will understand. I've shared my depression with my sister. We've talked about it. And she did tell me to tell my parents. I'm still trying to gather the courage to tell my parents, in hopes that they won't try to write it off as something else. Because as we know, in African communities, a lot of people equate depression to simply being sad, like, you know, something happens and you're sad, or people just don't believe that depression is a real thing, which it is. And so I'm hoping that I get to that point where I'm comfortable enough to share that part of my life with my parents. But for now, they know about my anxiety and they're very understanding.
Speaking to my parents about it, they're just like, listen, you're gonna have to like, when they realize that, yo, like, she's actually, like, on meds for, like, this is an actual thing, like, there are actual consequences if things aren't taken care of. We've actually spoken about, like, hey, well, then are you supposed to be eating that? Or, like, hey, like, how was your exam? So, like, it was more, we had more conversations about what my issues were. But it took a while, simply because, going back to this idea that Haitians, we don't like, I don't know if this is for everybody, but I'm just talking about my family in general. We don't like to talk about our issues at all. And it's bad because I don't think that it would have taken me to, like, the lengths of leaving the classroom, or the lengths of me, like, being so, like, scared about just talking to people in general, if I had that conversation with them before. And I'm not saying that my parents aren't good. I love my parents to death, but, like, there are just certain things that they're afraid of, and I think it's them afraid of. Now they're starting to understand, like, hey, like, we need to talk about things, like, well, then I noticed that you're kind of, like, emotionless, like, you're heartless, all these things, like, and they're starting to see these things, like, yo, this is a problem. So we're talking about it now, but I don't think it should have taken this long. But it's great because, like, at the end of the day, like, from their generation to mine, and to now, like, my cousins who are younger, like, there's more conversations about, like, hey, how are you feeling? Or, hey, how are you doing today? Or things like, do you need any help, or is anything that I can do for you? So I definitely think it's an issue.
Over the years, I can see that they're trying a lot harder. as we're getting older, they're getting better at understanding because we're talking to them more.
She kind of set her pride aside and she just sat down. She said, Brandon, I want for you to explain to me what it is you're feeling. And I took advantage of the opportunity. I laid everything out to her. I tried my best to explain to her, like, first off, that it's different for every single person. And second, like, I just tried to be as honest as possible without like using any technical terms, just telling her what my experience is. So I would do things like describe, like kind of putting her in my perspective and like asking her to remove her perspective, her point of view, her biases, and just like put herself in like a third person camera, you know, perspective in my life. And I would explain to her saying things such as like, I wake up and it feels as if the weight of the universe is on my shoulders and this is preventing me from getting out of bed. You know, it's so heavy that I can't even lift myself out of bed. And when I do get out of bed, the only thing on my to-do list is basics, survival, taking a shower, eating, you know, putting nutrients in my body, and that's it. Anything else is extra to me. I have no interest in doing my homework. I have no interest in doing the things that make me happy, talking to people, video editing, playing video games, looking at just social media, all that stuff. Like, I have no interest in any of this. All I want to do is survive through the day today. I want for today to end so that I can hopefully have a better day tomorrow. And then explaining to her that like that better day tomorrow more often than not doesn't happen. And it's just like continuous, like wake up, do the same thing, wake up, do the same thing, wake up, do the same thing. And maybe there's like a Monday where like I'm feeling a little good, you know, I'm in a good mood, people are in a good mood, the sun is out, and then the next day, wake up and do the same thing. And just like using phrasing like that to help her understand it. Instead of like trying to justify it and be like, this is depression, just say like, this is what I go through. And I felt as if like it was really helpful in her understanding what I go through. Because it kind of takes away like what scientists and like researchers say of what depression is, and like it forces her to like look at what her son is going through. So yeah, that's been my journey. I'm still working on it with them, but like more often than not, I choose not to like talk to them about it. I choose to go through it with my friends. You know, I feel as if they're a more useful resource for me in tackling this, because I feel like our generation just understands it more. You know, like the generation before us and the generation before them, like they don't get it. To them, it's just like, why are you sad? So yeah.